Project 2025, everything you wanted to know. We're breaking it down. Stay with me. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Conversation. I am Adrian Christian, and the first time that I heard about Project 2025 actually had a different name. It's been a project since its inception. There have been 9 variations or updates to this project since 1981. It's vast. It can't be done in a few minutes. But what I can bring up are a few key points here. It's a controversial interpretation of the unitary executive theory, according to which the entire executive branch is under the complete control of the U.S. president. So the U.S. president, back in 2016, Donald Trump had appointed people to be in the Supreme Court that ultimately led to his immunity, which really states that he could do whatever he wants and be lawless. I first heard of Project 2025 in a different incarnation back in 2016 when Donald J. Trump was running for president. There were meetings that I had read about among key figures surrounding Trump, and they were discussing the otherisms. If you were the other, if you were outside of being white, wealthy, and you didn't fit into that conservative category, your rights would basically be taken away. It seems to many people who don't, who have not seen the document, that it is, it's for, certain people, the transgender community, or people who are not abiding, or pornographers, or, a conservative agenda. But no, it affects practically every American, including in the rights to free speech and freedom of the press. There's a lot here to unpack. But basically, going down the line, federal civil service workers would be made political appointees in order to replace them with people loyal to the president, loyalists to Donald Trump. His name is mentioned 300 times in the document, even though he denies having anything to do with it, and even though many of the contributors are former staffers and also campaign members of the Trump campaign. Legal experts have said it would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties, reducing environmental and climate change regulations in favor of fossil fuels. The project seeks to cut Medicare and Medicaid. The age of retirement is being raised on this proposal. Urges the government to explicitly reject abortion as health care. Plain and simple. Removing legal protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Terminating diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It promotes capital punishment, and it hopes to undo almost everything implemented by the Biden administration. The Trump campaign has implemented something called the Agenda 47 program. Now, that Agenda 47 program is quite looking a lot like Project 2025. It's just their name, their version of it, and if it so happens to mimic or take suggestions from Project 2025, so be it. I want to also underline that there have been donations. There is a website. There are the names of hundreds of people involved in this Project 2025, and to the amount of donations totaling about $22 million. And if that doesn't scare you, you should see what else is going on that would also affect our children. Many contributors who are expected to be appointed to leadership roles in a future Trump administration. So this is the promise. This is what the motivator is for many of these people. It isn't so much that they are going to abide by these rules of law that would take away rights of so many people. It would just allow them to have carte blanche in positions of power. Even though Trump has denied having anything to do with Project 2025, he has publicly endorsed the organization at a dinner in 2022, a Heritage Foundation dinner. He actually publicly said it was going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do. And then we have the policies: census citizenship question, Christian nationalism, economy, critical of the Federal Reserve, and proposes abolishing it, moving from an income tax to a consumption tax, such as a national sales tax. It is there. It is there, and it is already happening, because the Trump campaign has already spoken about a national sales tax. And he is glossing it over as if he doesn't really understand what a tax is, saying we're not taxing the middle class, but they are. What they're doing is, in a national sales tax, let's say you are purchasing, a piece of a stereo equipment at Best Buy. Let's say the stereo equipment really costs $600. Let's suppose there. And so, but the equipment, the electronic equipment, is made in Taiwan or Japan or China. And so what they're doing is they're putting tariffs on the goods. So the tariffs are for imported goods. And so the price of $600, which is what it costs, would get a tariff of, let's say, $400. Suddenly, so this Best Buy is purchasing the equipment, they have to pay it ahead of time in this consumption tax, which is a tariff. And so it becomes $1,000. And so it shows up on the store shelf at $1,000 on sale from list price of $1,400, $1,500, and you're getting it on sale at $1,000, which is really a $600 piece of equipment. So in essence, you are paying that tariff. You are paying that sales tax. It's just not being noted as sales tax like the 10% that you might see on a receipt for your groceries. So this is what we're talking about when it comes to tariffs and a national sales tax. And what Trump has proposed with this tax is that it would go across the board on everything for everyone. So how's that for no inflation? How's that for a better economy under Trump? What do you think now? So if you're thinking of voting for Donald Trump, think again. And if you're thinking that you're going to be better off, that is not going to affect you, that it just affects the homosexuals, it affects the transgender community, it affects black people, it affects women, it affects women who are getting abortions, and it doesn't affect you, guess again. This is something that you have to know. You need to know this now. And if you've already voted, then I wish you the very best, but encourage your friends to look up the Project 2025 or the Agenda 47. It further recommends simplifying individual income taxes to 2 flat tax rates, 15% on incomes up to the Social Security wage base, $168,600 in 2024, and 30% above that. An unspecified standard deduction would be included, but most deductions, credits, and exclusions would be eliminated. So this is something that most Americans grapple with every year, come April when it's time to do taxes. So what looks like when he says, I'm not taxing you, I'm not going to tax you, increase your taxes, he's doing it around the corner in another method. And this Project 2025 really does hit the wallet. So I always believed that, people are not thinking about black or white or brown or Asian or Indian. They are thinking about one color, and that's green, the almighty dollar. And that's something to really consider when voting for a president of this country. Because in this country, Kamala Harris is proposing to give tax breaks specifically to the middle class, especially to the middle class and the lower socioeconomic status. Why? Because we have been the ones who have been taxed the most, those who earn under $400,000. Everyone earning under $400,000 is going to see a benefit from Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump is not proposing that benefit. So watch very closely. If you're saying that you don't know what Kamala Harris is doing, look it up. Go to KamalaHarris.com. Go to her website. Look it up because it's there, and she has spoken about it. Education and research. It proposes eliminating the Department of Education. Cuts would be made to the funding for free school meals. The Head Start program that provides services to children of low-income families would be eliminated. For the project's backers, education is a private rather than a public good. Project 2025 criticizes any programs to forgive student loans. That one hits many of us. We all want to seek higher education so that we can be qualified for better jobs, better pay, equal stance in society. And these things are designed to keep us there, to keep us on a lower bracket. You see? This is exactly my concerns with Project 2025. It isn't just elimination of conservatism, nationalism, or a Christian right. It isn't just that. It's everything across the board, creating a dictatorship and everything that is to Donald Trump's liking. It's designed for him. Expansion of presidential powers. The notion of independent federal agencies who don't answer to the president violates the very foundation of our democratic republic, Heritage President Kevin Roberts argues. So this is the idea, is that what he says goes. So right now, he is campaigning by cracking a lot of jokes, by sputtering and spewing a lot of hate, and by creating divisive behavior amongst Americans with his language, separating people, having everyone bicker with one another. So while we're bickering with one another, we're not paying attention to what's behind the curtain. And that's the thing that I think we have to most look at in this election, because he is aware of what he is doing. And this is the strongest that I've come out against Donald Trump, because I know that he is clear on what he wants to do. And regardless of how this election turns out, it's clear to me that he is not going to accept the outcome, especially if he loses. If we band together as Americans, I assure you that we're going to be stronger for it. The people who were surrounding him before there were some capable people who really understood how the Oval Office operates, how an administration works. And yet, many of them have gone. And many of them have gone to vote for Kamala Harris because of this very problem, which is our democracy. This goes on and on: foreign affairs, nuclear policy, healthcare and public health, immigration reforms, all of those rights, marriage, the definition of marriage, that will go back to what it was before. And that is all under the plan of Project 2025. Women's reproductive health. Project 2025 proponents maintain that life begins at conception. That alone should just tell you exactly where they are with all of this. Journalism is targeted here. It proposes defunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private nonprofit organization that provides funding for the public broadcasting system, PBS, and NPR radio. It also entertains the idea of revoking NPR stations' non-commercial status, forcing them to relocate outside the 88-92 range on the FM dial, which would then be taken by religious programming. they want to take away religious freedom. And I, as a believer of Christianity, and I who have been, I've been a Christian singer. I've sung in church. I've traveled the country, but I believe in every American's right and freedom of speech, religion, the First Amendment, freedom of the press. That's what makes this country what it is. The exchange of ideas, the interaction that we all can have with one another to further understand how we can be the greatest nation that we are. And as you know, hypocrisy runs rampant in politics. So while this is all put out, it doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that just because it's put out, it doesn't mean that it's going to be followed by them. It is their dictatorship to us and how we're supposed to live our lives. I leave this to you with lots of questions, and I will come back with more about Trump's plans and what is really going on with the rallies, what happened in Madison Square Garden, what happened in New York, Kamala Harris's closing speech. There's much more to share before Election Day, and I'm here for it in the conversation with you. Share your thoughts with me. Let me know what you think of all this. And for now, I bid you good night. I thank you for joining me in the conversation. I'm Adrian Christian. Good night.